Hello, everybody, and welcome to this episode of Mastering Midlife, How to Thrive When the World Asks the Most of You. I am your host, Mark Silverman. Today is a very personal episode. I'm inspired to do this by a post I just did on Facebook and a question I had. I posted that I am reading two books, I Am That by Sri Nisargadatta Maharaj, and also The Way of Mastery by Shanti Christo, which was recommended to me by Steve Hardison. And I'm sharing how much I'm getting out of these texts. And in the picture that I shared, I also had my morning pages and my note-taking uh, stuff and my meditation cushion. And it got me thinking about kind of the exquisiteness that flows through my life every single day and how grateful I am that I have found this thread in the world, and I wanted to share a little bit of my journey there. So I have been in the spirituality, self-help, self-improvement game since before I got sober. When I with Est and Life Shop and things back in the early '80s, late '70s, early '80s. Um, but let's fast forward many years to recently in my spiritual endeavors. My friend Tony Benici is a spiritual master in his own right, but he comes down through a Zen Buddhist lineage through his dad, Andrew Benici, Dr. Andrew Benici, who wrote a book called Boundless Intimacy. Now, Boundless Intimacy is a beautiful, and I have to say, stunning walk through the nature of reality, to the nature of being a human being, and to the nature of what is behind and infuses this um, just the beingness of. It's really hard to even use words with this. So Tony challenged me to read Boundless Intimacy. Now it's a big, thick book, and I did. I got the book and I read it, and as I read Boundless Intimacy, it washed over me like a cool stream of of reality, of love, of connection, of what they call the Tao, the flow that is the thread through all of life. I know this sounds flowery, but reading that book and then learning to sit on my cushion in Zazen meditation, which I learned from Dr. Benici, uh, really brought something truth to my life that I've always known. Reading the book was like every page was something I've always known. I read that book 2.5 times. I read it through 2 times, and then I use it as a reference. So that's my half time. But I still wasn't even after reading that, and it took me over a year to do it over 2 times. I still wasn't free. I absolutely sensed truth, but I wasn't free, and I went on a journey because life was still very heavy to me. I knew what the truth might be, and I knew all my self-help tools, and I knew how to be resilient, and I knew how to be connected, and I knew how to do all these things. But I still wasn't free. And a friend of mine, Phil Goddard, called me, and he said, and he was meditating, and he said, Mark, I feel this heaviness in you, and I feel like you could just let go and be happy and free and joyous. And he's, I don't know what it means, how, so would you get on a call with me? So we talked a couple of times, and he pointed me towards some books he doesn't even remember me pointing me to, on non-duality. Non-duality is, no two, there's only one. If you see something separate from yourself, you're actually lying to yourself, because we're all one. And I read a bunch of those books on non-duality. In fact, I read like 4 books on non-duality and the science and the practice behind kind of seeing through the veil of reality. And still not quite free yet, but I'm starting to get some semblance of that I'm driving myself crazy, that all my problems are my own. And I picked up the book, Spirituality, the Darndest Thing by Jed McKenna. Now that is a fictional book that takes us through the story of non-duality, of spirituality, of the thread of existence that lies behind the reality that we live with every day. And I loved this book. People either hate the book or love the book. And I read everything by Jed McKenna, who is a guru in the Midwest who doesn't exist. So nobody knows who Jed McKenna is, but man, he's just a pragmatic, no varnish uh, um, conversation about the nature of reality. Loved the book. But again, this took me on the journey of reading lots of books. I religiously read the teachings of Rabbi Schneerson from Chabad, who is the actually the last rabbi of that sect of Judaism, and Jewish mysticism and the oneness and all of that. So after reading all of this, um, picking up more books and listening to people like Alan Watts and just listening to people talk about this stuff. Uh, After reading Jed McKenna, something snapped in me, and I figured out that uh, Mark Silverman, this guy walking around, this defended self that the self-help books talk about, is really an illusion. It's just something that I put together and that I spend every day defending and putting together and all that. And all of a sudden, I was free. I really thank Phil Goddard for sending me on that journey. Um, so I've been free from this heaviness for quite a while. And then Steve Hardison, who I went to do some coaching with, suggested The Way of Mastery. Actually, I think Jackie Nechtel was the first one who told me that this was a book that I should be reading. But Steve recommends this to all his clients. And The Way of Mastery is the Christian version of what Rabbi Schneerson teaches, of what Dr. Bonici talks about. It's very, very Christ-centered. But the disclaimer on the book is we're just using Christ language to actually talk about the one reality. At the same time, I'm reading I Am That by Sri Nisargadatta Maharaj. I always have to read that, which is, again, all facets of the same diamond. And now I'm reading the Bhagavad Gita. So we're starting to see a theme here. I'm starting to see a theme here with all the books that I'm reading and all that I'm absorbing about non-duality, about there's no difference between you and me. There's no difference between me and the chair. There's no difference between the chair and the tree. There's only one. Now, this is a very personal journey. It can't be taken for you. And even hearing me talk about it is probably sounding a bit nuts and a bit indulgent to take your time and your speakers to talk about all these books and all this exploration. But what I want to convey to you is that in my studies, in my reading, in my experience, in my sitting, in my journaling and journaling and journaling and journaling, I found a freedom and a lightness to life that I have never experienced. And then I experienced more of it and look at the freedom and lightness that I had and didn't even know that even more existed. So this journey of dissolving the importance and the heaviness of Mark Silverman and letting something else flow through me, the Tao, life, what God, Christ, whatever you want to call it, has been the most exquisite healing I could ever imagine. My producer, Kate, asked me to talk about this a while ago, and I was hesitant to talk because I don't want to sound like a kook, but I'm a kook. There's freedom in them, their hills, and there's a flavor for every taste. There's the Christian flavor with Shanti Christo and the Way of Mastery. There's the Jewish flavor if you want to just steep yourself in Jewish mysticism with Rabbi Schneerson. I Am That with Sri Nisargadatta Maharaj. It's this is straightforward language. If you want to have some fun, Jed McKenna is so much fun. Boundless Intimacy, if you really want to sit on a cushion and Zen Buddhism just calls to you, there's no better text than that. These are my tools for freedom. These are my guides. These are my teachers. So if you get anything out of anything that I teach, anything that I share, this is where it comes from. Don't forget to have a pen and paper. I spend more. I have killed more trees with my pen and paper than I've eaten hamburgers. So I really suggest you have a pen and paper and keep a good stash of your notes because they will come back in handy. So I'm going to put a list of all these books. If you have any questions, please let me know. If this was helpful to you, I sure hope so. This episode is for me because I just want to spread the joy and the love and the connection that I get to flow through life with, where it was formerly heavy. And there's no dogma here. there's just freedom, there's just life, there's just connection, there's just God, there's just oneness, and there's no religion. So I love you. I hope this was helpful. Have a great rest of the day.